All right, this is lesson 5 for our essential math group in the home finance unit. And we're starting by talking about homeowners insurance. Homeowners insurance is designed to protect you from financial loss, right? If something were to happen that destroyed your home and all the stuff inside of it, not only is that an emotional and perhaps what's the word I'm looking for, sentimental loss, but importantly, it is a financial loss because you'd have to pay to replace those things. And that's what insurance protects you from. So whether you own a house, condo, rent an apartment, you will want to be insured in the event of something like, and I'll just list the big 3 for now. Fire. Yeah, fire bad. Yeah, Frankenstein was right about that. Burglary, fancy word for theft. And we'll say weather damage. That's the big 3. Those are the 3 most common reasons people have to make insurance claims. Okay? And homeowners insurance insures the following things. The contents of the building. We'll talk about what things inside the buildings can be covered and can't as we go along here. This is a word that nobody this morning knew what it meant. What's an outbuilding? That's right, that's a building that's not attached to the actual house. So yes, things in your garage are covered by your home insurance, things in your shed. So things like a garage, a shed, a barn, a gazebo. Yeah, there you go. There you go. So those things are actually covered under your homeowner's insurance. Covers you against third-party liability. We've kind of talked about this a little, but what does that mean? That means, for example, by a third party, that should be third-party liability, not third part. Third-party liability. Third-party liability means someone else, not you or your insurer, suing you for injury occurring, is there 2 R's in occurring? I don't know. On your property. This is actually one of the main reasons why even before, if you're building a brand new house, even before it's finished being built, you're supposed to have insurance. What if one of the guys working on it injures themselves working on your house? The house insurance would pay that, would be the take care of the third party liability. So third party means like somebody else, not you, not the insurance company. You're the first party, insurance company is the second party. The third party is somebody else. Somebody slips and falls trying to deliver a flyer to your mailbox. Without house insurance, they could sue you personally. It is. Well, what's wrong? What's wrong with you that you didn't keep your walkway clear?
Don't you get charged if you like attack someone that broke into your house?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
you can't even protect
The question, I'm sure the microphone didn't pick it up, is can you not be charged with a crime if you attack someone physically who is trying to break into your house? And the answer is yes. You are not legally allowed to cause people bodily harm for any reason other than self-defense in Canada. And even self-defense, it has to, a jury has to, a judge has to make the decision that your self-defense was reasonable. Yeah. There are parameters for it. Yeah, some of you are in the law class. I'm sure you talk about this a lot, right? Yeah. Okay, we'll stick to more insurance-y things. Obviously, the building itself is one of the things that's being insured, right? If the building falls down, burns down, it has to be replaced. And as the building's being fixed or being rebuilt, whatever, of course you got to live somewhere. So living expenses while you're waiting for the insurance to settle up and for your place to be fixed. If you got to stay in a hotel, you have to move somewhere, the costs of doing those things are covered by your home insurance. Okay? All right, any questions so far? Lots of big words. I'm sorry, there's a ton of English in this little part of the chapter. All right. Home insurance policies are separated into 2 basic types. Standard insurance, here in Canada we usually call it broad insurance. Broad meaning wide. And yet, this is the kind of insurance that is not the most, not the best at covering everything. In fact, I'm going to have to write more words than this line will show here. But this one covers your home against damage by something outside of your control, but, there is a but, only covers contents, the stuff inside your house, to named perils. So, the insurance policy will say, if anything happens that was out of your control and your house is now destroyed, we will either pay to replace or pay to fix your house. But the stuff inside, it depends. It depends if it's on the list on this insurance policy of what we said we'd cover. And the list usually says fire, usually says flood, but depends what kind. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. It'll usually say theft, right? Okay, question? Perils. I didn't write that very good. Let me write it better. My perils was very perilous. Perils. Perils means dangers. Things that could be dangerous that could happen to your house. Fire, flood, theft. Okay? So now, for example, if your home were destroyed in a fire and you had this kind, broad insurance, standard insurance, okay? The insurance policy would pay for all of the costs related to rebuilding the structure, right down to the architect, the builder, the construction itself, putting a new mailbox on, right down to the last detail. But the stuff inside the house, you should be listening, depends what the policy says. If you don't have written in the policy that you have contents coverage due to fire, then they don't have to replace anything that was in the house. So this, you have to be careful when you buy standard insurance. You have to make sure you read your policy carefully and find out what exactly are you covered for. And if you look at it and go, ooh, I don't feel like I'm covered enough, don't buy this kind. Buy the other kind, comprehensive insurance. Comprehensive insurance is also called all perils insurance because it should cover the contents of your house the same as the house itself. Whatever was inside, up to a certain monetary value, usually that's agreed upon when you sign the contract for your insurance, will be covered. So say that, so somebody when you bought the insurance policy says, yeah, you got about $75,000 worth of stuff in your house. Great, and that's what they'll put on the policy, you'll sign it, and then up to that much money, that's how much it'll cover if you get stuff destroyed. Now you might be saying, well, wait a minute, what about my $100,000 baseball card collection? Well, they're probably going to want you to pay for an extra insurance fee for that. If you have specific things that you want covered that wouldn't be covered normally in the policy, you got to pay extra for that. Just like, notice that this is much better than that one, right? If I had standard insurance and it wasn't just a fire that happened, let's say I live close to the zoo and an elephant escaped and ran through my house, destroyed everything. Well, again, standard insurance will pay to fix the big hole in the house where the elephant walked in and all the walls he knocked down and all the building stuff. But will it pay to replace my priceless collection of Fabergé eggs? No, I'm afraid not. I'm kidding. I don't have Fabergé eggs. In fact, whatever the elephant stomped on would not be covered because nowhere in my policy did it say I was covered for elephants. Whereas here in the all perils, animal damage should be good, assuming it wasn't your animal. And that is important, right? If you go out and get yourself a dog and the thing goes nuts and chews holes in your walls and destroys thousands of dollars worth of stuff, and you go to your insurance company, they might say, no, they're not going to cover that. But if a bear broke into your house, and you might be thinking, bears breaking in houses. Actually, that happens a lot. And if a bear breaks in your house and, you know, knocks over your fridge, rips the door off, all kinds of damage, yeah, all perils will cover that. Animal damage, as long as it wasn't your animal. They might send an insurance adjuster and an inspector, you know, a investigator over to make sure you didn't have a pet bear. This is Canada. Okay, thoughts? Okay, we have an economic question. It's gone down in the last little while, yes. Depends, the question was, how does the US dollar's decrease affect sales and stuff? Well, it depends. Obviously, in the tourism industry, Americans would be less likely to come up here and spend tourist dollars. And your favorite TV show that they film in Toronto or Vancouver for the American market, they might rethink that. But otherwise, I don't think it affects us too much. I mean, yes, they're our biggest trading partner, but we have our own economy separate of them. If anything, if you are somebody who wants to travel to the States, when the dollar gets closer to being at par, it's better for you. But we'll survive just fine. All right, anyway, we got a chart to go through. Okay, everybody caught up to these things here? Also, I should maybe say, also called all perils, contents will be covered for anything, now I should say for anything not excluded. So whereas this one, there's going to be a list of things that you are covered for. No matter what kind of insurance you buy, it's not going to cover you for everything. Typical exclusions might be, for example, if you live outside of the perimeter or of the floodway here in Manitoba, like you live outside of Winnipeg and you're on the other side of the floodway, good luck getting overland flooding insurance. They might say, you're covered for everything, we won't cover you for overland flooding. They just can't. It's just too big a risk for them. That's why so many people, the last time we had a big flood, you saw people out there sandbagging their houses, trying their best to protect their homes, because if the floodwaters get in and wreck stuff, they're not covered for it. If there's structural damage to the building because of it, yep, they'll cover that, but the contents inside, not so much. Here in Winnipeg, some neighborhoods can get sewage backup coverage. Some people, it'll be just right in their policy. Oh yeah, it's named, it's a named peril. We'll cover you for sewer backup. But if you're in some of the older parts of town where the sewer system hasn't been upgraded and it's still small, sewer backup happens a lot and it's too much of a risk. They'll say right in the policy, we're excluding that one. We're not covering you for sewer backup, so get yourself, invest in a sump pump, invest in a backup valve, because we're not covering you if the sewer backs up and wrecks stuff in your basement. Okay, so those are two common ones. What if you didn't live in the city? What if you lived way out, nowhere near civilization as we know it? You live in the bush, you live on the trap line, you've built yourself a nice house in the middle of nowhere. Do you think you'll get fire insurance? Forest fires happen, you're nowhere near a fire department. It depends how much you want to pay. I'm sure you'd find some company that would insure you against fire eventually, but they'd probably charge you a lot. Okay? Now, these are the two kind of main kinds that you buy, right? Standard and comprehensive. And most of both of them cover most things. Check out this kind of couple page list here. Oh, first we have to talk one more definition. You've probably seen this word if you've thought about vehicle insurance, or maybe you've heard talking, you know, somebody had to get into an accident, they had to pay their deductible. What's a deductible? A deductible is the amount you must pay to make an insurance claim. I know this seems counterintuitive. It's like, well, what am I paying my insurance for every month if when I finally have to use it and make a claim, I got to pay more. I got to pay this extra fee. Well, the insurance premium that you pay every month or once a year, depending on how you pay your insurance, pays for the stuff that they'll pay back to you, right? Like your house burns down, you have a claim, you know, something's damaged and they pay you back. That's what that money's for. The actual deductible is more like well, they had to investigate. They had to do work. Even if it's in car insurance, right? You had to drive your car or have it towed to the auto pack place, and they had to have somebody come out and look at it and assess how much it would cost to fix it. That guy has a job. That guy gets paid. There's paperwork involved. For the homeowner stuff, there could be a lawyer involved. All of those little costs involved with actually doing the work of an insurance claim gets paid for with deductibles. So the money you pay every month or once a year, your premium, that's the stuff that you should be getting back. Whereas the deductible is basically like a fee to use the system, is the way to think about it. And most deductibles are between 2 and 5. 5 is the standard, as you'll see when we do some actual problems. I have experienced this firsthand. If you place too many claims, your premium, which is what you pay for your coverage, or your deductible could increase. And if you have too many claims, insurance companies won't touch you. They don't have to. They're not your friend. So I've experienced this firsthand. I've made 3 claims in the house I've lived in for the last 22 years. Once we had a tornado touchdown in Headingley, which is not too far from my end of town, and the winds were so strong it blew a whole bunch of shingles off my roof. And a whole bunch of my neighbors, like probably a couple hundred houses in that end of town, had this problem. And it took the insurance adjusters so long to finally get on with, fixing people's roofs that I had a leak in my roof, which actually caused some damage to one of my floors. So not only did they have to fix my roof, they had to get me brand new hardwood floors throughout half my house, which was good for me. Basically, I got like a brand new roof. The roof was getting old to begin with. I was literally thinking, you know what, next summer I think we should probably replace the roof. And then that summer, a tornado came by. So it was really funny. Me and my neighbors were outside picking up shingles off the ground going, is this one yours? And I said, no, that one's mine. Oh, okay. And then it was crazy. Yeah, it was like a puzzle. It was quite a scene. And so I was probably maybe a year or two away from needing a new roof anyway. And there you go. There's a $15,000 roof. Plus probably another $15,000 in hardwood floors that wouldn't have even needed replacing if they'd have done the roof right away, but they were busy, they couldn't, so they absorbed that cost. But that was my 3rd insurance claim. I had a couple others, and the next year when my insurance came up, I noticed a significant jump, like about $60 per year in how much more they wanted to insure me. Now, that extra $60 is still kind of nothing compared to how much I gained from their system. But I noticed it didn't start going down until a couple years ago. And we'll talk about why it went down again in a minute. But anyway, I promised you we've got to look at some charts here. Here we go. Notice that the left side is the broad form, also called again standard. And this is the comprehensive. And notice, if your building actually falls down, you're covered for both things, right? Your building collapsed due to age, due to stress, due to whatever. Weight of ice and snow on it, yep, you're covered. And they'll pay for debris removal. Oh, anybody here ever live in a house that wasn't near a natural gas line like you are here in the city? Anybody have an oil furnace? Yeah, I had one in one of the houses I lived in up north. And an oil furnace can leak. If a leak suddenly springs in the oil furnace, you can actually claim the cost of the oil. And of course, if it blows up, you can claim that as well. Right? Of course, explosions can happen for natural gas houses too. Every once in a while you see that on the news, right? A house just blowed up because of some sort of problem with the natural gas line going into the house, or the furnace itself was had what you'd call an extreme collapse or extreme malfunction. Falling objects hitting your building, fully covered. So if a tree falls and damages your house and the stuff inside, remember, this is the building, this is the contents, fully covered. Falling objects in the building. Now, I don't know quite what this is. I guess that'd be a roof collapse of some sort. Ceiling fan fell down, maybe, yeah. Yeah, maybe a tub that could be the elephant back from the zoo. Yeah, we don't know. Don't quite know what they mean by falling objects in the house, but I guess we can use our imaginations there. And anyway, we're covered. Fire, obviously, we're covered for inside and out. Again, with some caveats, right? Again, if it's like you're living nowhere near a fire hall, There might not be coverage based on your specific location, but for the most part, yep, full coverage for contents in building in both types of insurance. The fire department isn't free, but that's something your insurance company will pay for. This not covered is because, well, it's already covered here, right? It's not like two different fire departments will show up, one for the building, one for what's inside the building. So you'd only pay for it once, and you wouldn't pay for it directly. Your insurance company would pay for it for you. Does that mean if you don't have insurance and the fire department comes, you get a bill? Yep, that's how it works. Anybody have this happen? Say a bad storm comes out, knocks out your power, and it's out for so long that the stuff in your freezer goes bad? That is something you could claim in your home insurance. Now, you'd have to, of course, play this game. If your deductible's $500, is it cheaper to just buy new meats? Or it depends on how much stuff was in your freezer, right? If you have a freezer with thousands of dollars of steaks in it, then I think you'd probably make the claim, and according to this, you should be okay. You should get it. Oh, by the way, a storm is not the only reason your power can be out for a while, right? You could have some sort of surge that actually damages your electrical grid and your panel box in your house. And then, yeah, it could be days before they fix it. Stuff in your fridge and freezer is going to go bad, right? There is one case where your deductible isn't $500, and that's usually when a window breaks. That was the first claim I ended up having to make for my house that I live in. Some nut job went around in my neighborhood and was like breaking people's windows at random, and he actually threw a like cinder block through he grabbed it from my garden, threw it through my window, and then when it broke the window and when it hit the floor, it took a big chunk out of the hardwood floor. So again, hardwood floors had to be replaced. So through 2 insurance claims, I've had all of my hardwood replaced. Didn't have to do it myself, but I'm paying for that now in that my deductible's gone up. So, or sorry, my premium has gone up. We haven't had a good hailstorm in a couple of years, but remember we did have one not last summer, but the summer before. It was pretty strong. Lots of people had their cars, little dents in their hood and the roof of their cars, right? If the wind is going the wrong way, that can take out the windows of your house. It could damage your roof. So yeah, hail damage, as you can see, should be covered by both of them. If a aircraft or land vehicle crashes into your house, and that actually happens a lot here in the city, right? People lose control in the street, and car hits their house. You are fully covered for that. Interesting, even if it's your own. Now, obviously, there's limits to that. If they do send the police over and it turns out you were inebriated when you ran into your own house, I don't think your insurance will cover you. You'd be on your own for that. But if it was an accident, right? If it was an actual accident, you're not at fault, right? You are at fault. All accidents are preventable, but it's not an accident that happened because you chose to get yourself lit up, right? So, I mean, or for people watching at home, I'm making the drinking hand symbol there. Yeah, if you are not inebriated or under the influence of alcohol and you accidentally drive the vehicle into your own house, that's an accident, and that's what you're covered for. Financial loss, it was an accident, you'd be covered for that. Of course, mechanical failures happen too. Everybody knows about the Jeep Cherokees that people think that they're in park, and the little stick pulled down into reverse on them, and suddenly their car is moving, and they didn't want it to. Lots of people hitting their own garages. One unfortunate young actor actually died that way, right? The guy from the Star Trek movies. That's how he died. His Jeep Cherokee ran him over. Terrible, yeah. So terrible things can happen. Insurance. This is fun, this discussion, isn't it? It's all about houses burning down and people dying. Okay, yeah, this was my third. Actually, it was the second claim I made. I had somebody lose control of their vehicle in front of my house and ran over a tree that had probably been there 80 years. And my neighbors all kind of got together and said, hey, we should, we should get his auto pack to pay it because it's an actual vehicular accident. But what ended up happening was his auto insurance and my house insurance together paid for it, and they fixed the tree. They actually brought out a tree surgeon and reset it. There had to be a crane involved. It was quite the deal. So yep, somebody runs over the stuff in your yard, you can be. And notice that there's no inside version of that because that's the stuff outside, right? Now most houses are designed. Most buildings, in fact, are designed to withstand lightning strikes. For those of you who don't know, your main stack, the main pipe that holds water for your house that allows the gravity to flush all the toilets and run, If you ever thought, hey, how does the toilet flush on the second floor? It's because there is in fact a stack of water, a pipe full of water that's higher than the toilet on the second floor. It goes almost all the way to the roof. And since it's going up that high anyway, they do continue the metal of that right past the roof, and that acts as your lightning rod. So when lightning strikes, it should hit that. It's metal, it's conductive, it's higher than the tip of your roof. But every once in a while, lightning decides, I'd rather not take that path, thank you very much. And it might go wherever. It might damage electrical equipment in your house. It might actually start a fire in your house. If lightning causes damage to your house and the contents, you can see you're covered. It's pretty rare that that happens. Most houses are designed to withstand lightning, and it's pretty rare that something goes wrong with that. This one I find really interesting. Notice that if snow or ice on your roof is melting and it causes damage inside your house, notice that standard insurance isn't going to cover that, which makes sense because that's kind of on you. Like, you should have a roof quite capable of handling melting ice and water. So obviously there was something wrong with the roof and you never had that fixed, so that's your problem. But interesting enough, in comprehensive, they say they cover that. I don't know why. This one kind of surprised me. I actually asked, my mother-in-law sells insurance, so I actually asked, is this like a real thing? If the 1980s happened again and there was a really sudden, sharp jump in mortgage rates, can you be protected somewhat from that by your house insurance? The answer is yes. Because again, what is it? It's a financial loss. All of a sudden your mortgage is a lot more money than it used to be. You have lost money financially and it wasn't your fault. So for whatever the rest of your term is, that can get covered if this is one of the things named as one of your perils. So can be covered. Obviously that has nothing to do with the contents of your house. It's just the house itself. Moving to a new home and you have to buy stuff for inside that home, covered. Mysterious disappearance. Sometimes things get stolen from your property, you don't notice it right away. That's called mysterious disappearance, right? It's called a discovered theft. And yep, it can be covered in comprehensive only. You'd think here in our nice quiet little world that this wouldn't be something we have to think about, but we've all seen what happens to cities in the news when massive protests happen. What if that was your house that was right next door to the Best Buy that was being looted? Yeah, if a riot happens, you're covered. Finally, last couple of things on this page. What if your plumbing system or air conditioning systems rupture? You should be covered for that. Now again, sewer backup in standard insurance is pretty much never covered. And even if you wanted to buy comprehensive, it would kind of depend what neighborhood you're in. All right, some neighborhoods, even right here in Winnipeg, will not. No insurance company will cover you for sewer backup because it just happens too often. So it's too big a risk for them. All right, smoke damage, including your own fireplace because you know, maybe some birds got into the chimney and got it all stuck up, and that happens. Or maybe Santa got stuck in there, and you know, whatever. Theft from principal dwelling. Notice again that has nothing to do with the building itself, but yep, you're covered. Theft of contents away from principal dwelling. So say, for example, you had stuff that belongs in your house, but for whatever reason, and it would have to be a legitimate reason, it was being moved from place to place and it got stolen in transit. Yeah, your home insurance will cover that. Even if you were too dumb to lock up your car. Isn't that interesting? Transportation. Right? Again, say that there's damage done to your house and your car was right next to your house or was in the garage beside your house and that got damaged too. Yep, they would pay to replace your transportation so you can get to work or wherever. This would be the one where I had to put it under, right? It was vandalism, a malicious act. Some nut job throwing bricks through people's windows in my neighborhood. Water escape. In other words, a leak that causes damage in your house. My neighbor had to do this. My neighbor was gone for a vacation for a week, came back to find out that the little valve on their toilet had busted, and it flooded an entire floor of their house, and they were covered for it. He'd never, you know what, it came with the house. So somebody's saying, I'm sure that Mike didn't pick you up, saying that if you ever have to adjust the hose between the tank and the bowl of your toilet, just replace it, and that is actually good advice, because once you've cracked the seal that the plumber put in when they installed it, it'll never sit quite and be perfect again. So yep, replace the bit. That is good advice, But I don't think that was the deal here. He hadn't done any work to it or anything. It just got old and failed. And then that was it. Now, this is interesting. Has anybody here even ever seen a waterbed? A couple people, yeah. In the 1970s, people thought it would be a good idea to, instead of sleeping on a mattress filled with feathers and sponge stuff and coil, no, let's get a big bag of water and put a heater under it, and that's what we'll sleep on. That was a huge thing. Like, everybody had one. I had one actually when I was a teenager. So I couldn't imagine sleeping on it now. They're not good for your back. I think that's the main reason. That and the amount of electricity they add to your electricity bill, because you have to keep this hundreds of gallons of water warm enough to sleep on, or else you'll freeze. It's like, well, what if it's room temperature? No. The water would take so much heat from you at room temperature that you wake up freezing. So you have to keep it warm even in the summer when it's hot. So it's just a huge electrical bill. So I don't know. Waterbeds, plus they're not good for your back. So I think waterbeds, I think that's a fad that's gone. But I guess there could still be people who have them. And if it leaks, look at that. They're covered. This is the one I had just told you about, right? Windstorm. Actually, tail end of a tornado came through my neighborhood. So there we go. There's some of the things. An actual insurance policy would, if it was, again, a standard one, would name all these perils. It would have a list just like this. You'd have to read it over, and before you signed on the dotted line saying, yep, I'll pay for this policy, make sure that you're cool with everything that's on there, or especially the things that aren't on there. Now, how do they figure out how much they're going to charge you for this insurance? 5 things. This should make total sense. Obviously, if it's a more expensive house to replace, they're going to charge you more for the insurance. It'll cost you more to insure a $1 million house than a $200,000 house. Would it be 5 times more? No, it's not quite a linear scale like that, but it's definitely more. Like everything in real estate, location, location, location. Where you are determines how much they're going to charge you for insurance. We'll look at that in a minute. And of course, which coverage you choose. Right? Do you want standard or do you want the comprehensive? Do you have something special in your garage that, like an ATV and a skidoo and a sea-doo and a boat? And it's like, well, my standard home insurance just covers me for 10% of the value of what's in my garage. Yeah, that's usually what you get for what's in your garage, 10% of replacement value. So it's like, nope, I got lots of toys in there that need extra insurance, so you'd pay for that extra insurance. Number 4, which deductible you choose. And again, deductible is usually $500 standard, but if you want to pay for a lower deductible in case you have to make a claim so you don't have to put out $500, you could usually pay a little more on your insurance premium and get a $200 deductible. Usually the difference is 10% more. And lastly, discounts. You can get discounts in your insurance. Okay, we'll look at all of these one at a time. How do they figure out the replacement cost of your house and how much to charge you based on it? Well, obviously, they'll determine that, how much it would cost to actually replace the house, like rebuild it so it's almost the same house it was before it got destroyed. 70% of your replacement of your contents, right? So somebody will walk through the house, kind of go, okay, you got about $80,000 worth of stuff here, so 70% of 80, that's $56,000 you'd get if the house burned down tomorrow. That's how it works. Usually it's 70%. Again, things in outbuildings like your shed, your garage, 10%. So if you have lots of expensive tools in your garage because that's where your workbench is, or you have, again, lots of toys like ATVs and stuff and a boat, you're going to pay for extra insurance for those things. Having said that, boats, I think, generally are licensed and have their own. You have boat insurance in this province. So yeah, that probably has its own insurance. But other things like ATVs and stuff aren't. Additional living expenses while your home is being built would be factored into that. And again, your third-party liability. Right? If somebody's injured on your property, they don't sue you directly if you have home insurance. But that's built into how much they charge you for replacement cost. So that's replacement cost. Manitoba is divided for insurance purposes into 4 areas. Area 1 is right here in Winnipeg. What determines where Winnipeg ends? Almost everybody, when asked this question, says the perimeter highway, and that's not true. It's a good guess, though, and it's close geographically. What determines if you are in Metro Winnipeg? So it's not the perimeter highway. Anybody want to try a different guess? Ooh, no, that's a good guess too. But is it the RM that it says on your home forms and your like voting forms and stuff like that? It's the floodway. If you live within the floodway, you are in Metro Winnipeg, and that kind of makes sense because again, all the insurance guys, it's so far. Well, in some parts, it's not even as far as the perimeter. The perimeter crosses it at one side, right? So it's not the perimeter highway; it is the floodway. If you live within the floodway, you are in Metro Winnipeg. You live within the city for insurance purposes. If you're in Area 2, you're outside the city, but you are within 1,000 feet of a fire hydrant. 1,000 feet's not that far when you think about it. I know it sounds like a big number, but remember, a meter stick is like 3 feet. So imagine about 330 of those sticks right there. If you're further than that from a fire hydrant, you don't qualify as Area 2. Then you're in Area 3, where you still have to be within 10 kilometers of a fire department. And if you're past that, well, then you live in the sticks. You're out on a farm in the middle of nowhere. You're out in the bush. You are paying different insurance because you're nowhere near where fire protection can help you, which makes sense, right? All right, we already talked about this. There's 2 types of coverage that you can pick. We've talked about this. Most deductibles are $500. You could pay more and have a $200 deductible. And what did I mean by discounts? You can get discounts on your insurance for the following things. If you have a burglar alarm that is being monitored by a company that you pay to monitor it, if you are paying for that, you will get a significant, like a couple $100 discount on your insurance. Claim free for 3 or 5 years. You see, I've had 3 claims in 20 years, but they were spaced out enough that I kept getting hit, so it was like, it kept going up on me. But check out this last one. A couple years ago, when I turned 50, I noticed my premium went down. This seems unfair. Like, why do younger people have to pay more for insurance than older people? And I asked my mother-in-law this, and she wasn't sure. But they figure that older people get kind of a discount on their insurance, or discount on their insurance, because it's kind of a senior's discount because, and this makes some sense. People who are older tend to be either working less or retired altogether, and they tend to have more time to deal with the maintenance of their house. So their houses tend to be in better shape, right? They have the time to fix the little problems that can lead to big problems, that can lead to insurance claims. Plus, they're home a lot more, right? A lot of bad things that happen to houses happen when people are away on vacation. So as long as they're retired and they're not snowbirds, they're around, right? So yeah, it does make some sense that they are less risk to an insurance company, so they get a discount for it. And of course, if you have a brand new home, your insurance will be a little lower because they'd expect like it not to collapse. It's brand new. Of course, that might not be true, but that's I guess statistically what they would expect. So there we go. That takes care of all of the stuff that we need to kind of remember and think about in case I ask you like a multiple choice question or an explain question. So these are the kinds of things you have to think about. What kind of math do we have to do? Well, we got another chart. Check that guy out. That's a beautiful chart, isn't it? You know what the nice part of this chart is? You don't have to really do a whole lot of calculating. Those numbers are your yearly payment. So that's it. So let's do example 1. Example 1, Mr. and Mrs. Walton buy a house in rural Manitoba. They're within 10 kilometers of the nearest fire hall. The house has a replacement value of $90,000. They want a comprehensive policy with a $500 deductible. So what do? We go to the chart and we look at all these numbers. Okay, within 10 kilometers, but not in a town. So that puts them in Area 3, right? So they're not close enough to a fire hydrant, but they're within 10 kilometers of a fire hall. So they're in Area 3. They want $90,000 worth of insurance. So there's the 90,000 line. And they said they wanted the comprehensive, which is this column here. So that's it. That's all there is to it. That's the math. $356. Okay? You had to look on the question was, did we consider this math? Well, we're in a math course. They're telling me to teach it to you, so yep. I had to look a number off a table. What more do you want? That took effort. All right, the second one has a little bit of calculating. See if you can figure out what it is. First of all, they're in Metro Winnipeg, right? Replacement cost, boy, this is a cheap house in Metro Winnipeg, but we'll play along. $65,000. Ah, what's different about this one? They want a lower deductible. Okay, so go back to the chart. What do you think happens? Oh, I underlined it from this morning's class. Can you see it at the bottom? Increase your premium by 10%. So first thing I do is I look up what their premium is. So it's $65,000. They're in Metro Winnipeg. They want comprehensive, $277. So the first thing I'm going to do is write that number down. It's $277, but they have to increase by 10%. So it's $277 increased by 10%. So this is about the only real calculation we got to do in this part of the chapter. How do you increase a number by 10%? There's two ways to do it. There's the long way and the short way. I'll do the long way first. Let's find 10% of 277, which is $27.70. And then we'll add, get increase, right? We'll add those two numbers together, giving me $304.70. Want to see the shorter way? If you want to increase a number by 10%, you want 110% of that number. Does the logic of that make sense to you? You want the whole number, which is 100%, and you want 10% more of it. So you want 110% of the number. So that's actually only one calculation. That's just 1.1 times 277. If you run that through your calculator, you get the same answer we just did. And that's one answer, and you don't have to add anything. So it's shorter. Do I care which way you do it? No. As long as you get the right answer, either way, they both work. How did I know the first one was Area 3? Going back to the first example? Because rural Manitoba, so not in the city, it doesn't, and they're within 10 kilometers of the nearest fire hall. If you take a look back to location, you're outside of 1 and 2, but you're within 10 kilometers of a fire hall. You're in Area 3, right? If you're within 1,000 feet of a fire hydrant, you're in Area 2, and if you're inside Winnipeg, you're in Area 1. Okay? I don't think you can. The question is, can I install my own fire hydrant and save a few bucks on my insurance? I don't think so. All right, example 3. Like we talked about, just because you live in an apartment and go, oh, it's not my house, what do I care if it burns down? Yeah, but you've got your stuff inside. Imagine all of a sudden everything you own in that apartment's gone. How would you live? How would you exist? You know, all you have is the clothes on your back. It'd be nice if you had tenants insurance, and tenants insurance is usually quite a bit cheaper than homeowners insurance for obvious reasons. You're not insuring a building that has to be rebuilt. You're just insuring the stuff in it. You can pick how much insurance you think you need, basically make a guesstimate as to what it would cost you to replace the stuff that's in your apartment. So Sharon is going to have the $200 deductible, and she thinks that the stuff in her apartment's worth $25,000 to replace. So now we go to this second chart. Back. Tenant. Tenant means person who rents an apartment, right? So $25,000. And which kind of coverage did she want? Standard. So she wants standard form, which is this number here. But she wants the $200 deductible. So she wants a 10% increase on $158. So she wants 110% of $158, which I've already punched buttons on this, is $173.80. And again, that's about as hard as it gets. Let's see. Last one, example 4. Marlene rents an apartment in Brandon. Her personal possessions have a replacement value of $30,000. She wants the $500 deductible. What's her Annual premium. Well, let's take a look. She just wants the regular deductible, so none of that 10% stuff. But does it matter that she's not in Winnipeg? Nope. For whatever reason, tenants insurance in this province doesn't matter where you live. I guess they figure if you live in a place big enough to have an apartment building, there's going to be a fire hydrant nearby anyway. That might even be code. I don't know. I'll try it. I'll try building an apartment building in the middle of the bush and see if anybody says anything. Probably can't do it. There's probably code against that of some sort. So this one's just basically a lookup. $30,000. She wants standard. That's it. 174. Nothing to do with that one, but look up a number. All right. Any questions? All right. There is 5 practice questions for this. Go to your workbook, and it's 2E. I think it's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it's only 4. Oh, no, it's 5. 5 questions. That's it. If you can do those 5 questions, you got like 15 minutes. You could probably finish them in 15 minutes. You're free of homework. All right. Going to stop the video.